Today on Dice to Pixels, we're going to be talking about Stardew Valley and probably Stardew Valley. And Sarah's going to have a story time for us today.
Yeah. It's my turn for story time this week. So I heard a thing through a podcast actually today on Friday that I thought was really, really interesting. And I did not know it was a thing. But apparently in the early 80s, you could download a indie video game for the computer.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Through the radio, even better.
Yep.
So I guess because I have what the computers are called at the time, don't know where it is on my sheet, but I guess
it's in effect, because I know the computer science behind this. In effect, it was no different than a modem. It's just that you were hooking your modem up to the radio instead of telephone line.
Yeah. And basically the noises from the radio were converted to your game, and that's how you played your game. I guess sometimes it would take a long time to download, and if you screwed up the ones, or if it heard the 1 and 0 incorrect, your entire day was knackered. Yeah, I thought that was just really, really cool. It describes it as sounding like starting up like phone line, old school phone line internet. Most of our demographic has heard that.
Yeah.
There's actually a YouTube video of that noise, and it does not sound like that to me. It sounds like the fax machine when it goes through the wrong line, and it is horrendous. It is an awful noise.
Yeah. So from a technical perspective, because the radio didn't have the same sort of level of frequency response as your phone line, they had to use fewer bands, basically.
Yeah.
Which makes it sound a little different, but like harmonically it's pretty similar. It just doesn't have quite the range.
Yeah.
But yeah, same idea.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess with it, like the size of the game could depend on the radio signals themselves, is what my understanding of it. So like as the frequency increases, you could store more data.
Yeah.
And then as bandwidth increases, more data can be encoded. And it's stuff I don't understand, but it sounds, from my very basic understanding from like high school science, it's like, oh my God, that's so freaking cool.
Yeah. So basically with the frequency, so there was two different ways that you could do it. There's AM and FM, which we won't get into all the details, but AM was probably more common for this. I believe it was.
It didn't mention that in the article I
think it was.
It would make sense to
because
me,
AM is amplitude modulation, which means it's always on the set frequency, and it's just loud as 1, quiet as 0. It's slightly more complex than that, but in essence, which meant that you could miss information because of the signal getting too quiet or fuzzy or whatever. But it made it very, very easy to decode. I'm sure there were FM versions of it too, but I suspect most of them were AM just because it's so much easier to work with. These days, doing FM would be trivial, but we also have, other options. But yeah, basically the higher the frequency, you can basically put through that many 1s and 0s per second, essentially. So the higher frequency, the more you can do.
Yeah. So there was a Dutch company. I'm not even going to try to say the name because it's in Dutch and I can't pronounce it. But the initials are NOS. They were a broadcasting organization that realized that, hey, this is a cool thing that we can take advantage of. So they created like an entire radio station specifically for that. And it was mostly indie games, like small.
Yeah.
Like apparently the graphics were absolute junk and the games themselves weren't fantastic, but like the ability to get free games when games, I assume, were probably pretty expensive at that time.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Hard to get more than anything.
Yeah.
They actually weren't, most games were indies at that point, to be fair.
Sure.
A lot of computer science magazines would have like cassette tapes in them. Which would be one common way of getting them. They'd have like a bunch of games and software included. And a lot of it was free. It was just distributed but it, short of handing floppy disks around, it wasn't easy to get games.
Yeah.
So
the way that it was described in the podcast I was listening to was like people would like do the old school, like hold their tape recorder up to the radio or whatever to record it so that they could play it again later. Yeah. And then I guess sometimes like not only would game magazines have cassettes, but I guess sometimes it'd be like records too, I guess, because I guess technically that would still work.
Yep.
But like,
yeah, records were probably less common on the whole, but they absolutely still use them.
Yeah.
The reason videotapes and cassette tapes were more common was because actually from a data density point of view, those are very, very high.
Yeah.
VHS far more than anything else. Because of course, if you think about it, like back in the day, a VHS tape would hold potentially up to 8 hours of video, which is like a lot of data.
Yeah.
Right. Now, obviously, the data loss on them was high and everything else, but you could still potentially ship a lot of data for a very cheap cassette. They were like $1.
Yep. Probably far more reliable than any record, because like you scratch a record and then things get screwed up so fast.
Surprisingly, because like with audio, that's true, but with data, records are actually not a bad format for them, except that they're not very dense. Because with a record with traditional music, it's like you're looking for those sloping, smooth, like tonal changes. Whereas with data, it's like it's a 1 or a 0.
True.
So your data density is lower because you can't just go go up and down because the needle would like get into the groove and get stuck. But like if you lose your way between like a peak and a valley, it doesn't really matter because you know that it's a peak and then a valley. It doesn't matter if the valley doesn't go quite deep enough or the peak doesn't go quite high enough. It's still a 1 and a 0.
Yeah, it's higher than the other one. Yep.
It's more complex than that. But in essence, so they were actually fairly reliable for that. But not very dense, like really not very dense. And I think they would usually use the smaller. I don't think they did a whole lot.
No, I think it was described as a 45. So
yeah. But yeah, they had all kinds of fucking cool ways of transferring data back in the day.
No, I did not know that was a thing at all. And I am very happy to have been introduced to it. It's very interesting.
Yeah. The other thing that's probably somewhat interesting to know for some people, this is sort of tech, not gaming, but up until very, very recently, and probably even to this day, the fastest way to transfer data has always been physically. You send a CD or a record or a thumb drive or whatever. Up until at least a few years ago, and they might still do it now, Amazon would, part of their AWS cloud offerings was they would drive a semi-truck with a trailer that was just basically full of hard drives to your business to do a direct like 10 gigabit fiber link from your servers to this truck so that they could back up all of your data, and then they would just drive it back to the AWS data warehouse and upload all your data.
Holy shit.
So that you didn't have to put it all over your lines.
Yeah.
Because like a lot of businesses don't, if they have a line, they have what they need for their business operations. They don't have enough extra to like transfer, a petabyte of data and I believe that these semi trucks would have like a petabyte worth of storage, which is a huge amount if you don't know that. So even to pretty modern day, it's actually like shipping physical stuff. I know we started talking about radio, but shipping physical stuff is still very much a viable way to transfer data today. So
that's very cool.
Yeah, I don't think there are any games that take up that much space though.
I would certainly hope not.
GTA 6 maybe. Yeah, no, thanks. That's I knew about that when you mentioned it. I was like, I think it's probably one of a couple things, but I hadn't thought about it in years, and it's just such a fascinating thing.
It's so cool.
Yeah. So to be honest, neither one of us. Well, I've played something important, which is Stardew. Sarah hasn't been playing much this week.
No, I had a lot to work. Chad's been sick. That's why he's not here. But he's played a lot of Hi-Fi Rush, and like he finished it, but now he's just going back into all the challenge modes to probably get the full platinum for it, I assume.
Yeah, and he'll tell us more about that next week, including the new Sick game that he was trying out. Initial reviews are low. He didn't seem to like it. Yeah. But we don't have a lot to talk about other than the Stardew Valley board game. I
am excited to hear your thoughts on it. I've had it for 2 years and still have not played it.
Yeah, we're going to play it soon. So right off the top, I loved it. They did a really good job of capturing like the essence of the board game.
Yes. I did pull mine out and start a single player game at one point. And I did find, like, based off of the setup and just the partial game that I started playing with myself, that it is a lot of the elements of the video game.
Yeah, like the friends mechanism has all of the NPCs that you would expect from the game. The fishing, we got fucked on the fishing, but
you suck at that fishing game.
Yeah, well, I wasn't doing it, but it wouldn't have gone any better. So the fishing and the mining, the only thing I will say about it is there is a lot of luck elements to the game. That said, most of them you can pretty quickly work around. The two that screwed us and made it so that we really wasted a lot of turns and we lost, just to be clear, by like one fucking turn, but we lost. The fishing requires you to just you can improve your tools throughout the game, but in order to improve most of the tools requires ore. And I was mining, but I was getting fucked left, right, and center.
Yeah.
I didn't get an ore for the first 8 rounds of the game.
Yeah, so with should explain, for the ore and for fishing, there's 2 like bags, and you're just drawing out tokens for that.
Actually, the mining works differently.
Oh,
so
does it?
For the fishing, the way that it works, just high level, is you have 5 spots.
Oh,
and
right,
you pull out a fish, and then you put it on the track, and you can catch any of those 5 fishes. But in our case, there was one point where it was like 4 pieces of garbage and 1 fish, which is. And you have to kind of just wait for the garbage to go away. You can't you can't catch the garbage. You just kind of have to let it go away. So that was a bit annoying, but you can work around that to an extent with the fishing. With the mining, every time you go to a new level of the mine, you flip over like a card, which it's like a 3x3 matrix that has like, one spot will have ore, one spot will have like an enemy, one spot will have like an event, whatever. And then you roll your dice, and whatever spot on that card that maps to, you get, like, if you land on ore, if you're on, mine level 1, you get copper. If you're on mine level 12, you can choose between any of the ores. So you can always choose previous ores. But if you don't land on the ore, you don't get ore. That's it. Yeah. So like we got down to like mine level like 8 before. No, not quite that much. It was, I think, 6. It was turn 8, I think, mine level 6 before I got a fucking ore. And that's like mining like twice per round. Normally, if you get an ore earlier, you can upgrade the pickaxe, and then it becomes easier and easier and easier.
Yeah.
But that first fucking piece of ore took so long. So we ended up losing. And then the one balance problem that we found was the museum, which is, I think it needs a tweak. For 4 players. For any other number of players, it's probably fine. But the way that it works is that's the other bag, is when you get either a gem or an artifact, you like pull it at random.
I thought it was mining.
But they all have, you get them through mining a lot, but they all have a letter on them. And the museum where you donate them to has letters A through G, I think, I forget. It has 8 spots. And you have to fill all of those spots, but they are lettered. So like if you get an artifact, if you have 7 out of 8 artifacts and you pull another one, but it's an A and you already have that spot filled, doesn't matter. So with 2 players, that's not a problem, because like you're only filling half of it. The likelihood of collisions isn't that high. But when you were playing, like we were playing with 4, and you had to fill the entire museum, which means that not only did you have to get 8 artifacts or gems, you had to get 8 specific ones.
Yeah.
Holy fuck. That's a big part of why we lost. Because that was just kind of unattainably hard. So that is a balance thing that probably needs to be tweaked a bit, but I think you could pretty easily tweak it with a homebrew. Like even as simple as like you can trade 3 artifacts for 1 of any letter would be fine. But we got we got fucked by that pretty hard. But overall, really, really, really good. It was a long game though. I think it took us like 4 hours.
That does not surprise me at all. That's the one of the main reasons I didn't finish my single player game was, well, it's a big setup. It takes a big footprint to begin with.
Yes.
Our kitchen table did not hold it because of the stuff on our kitchen table at my house. So I had to play it on our floor. And it still took up a big footprint. And I needed to cook dinner, so I had to put it away.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to play it together, the three of us plus my wife. It's a game that I can't wait to play again. It's a really good game. And even though we lost arguably because of a bit of a balance issue, I enjoyed every fucking minute of it. It was really fun. Fully cooperative, as I'm sure anyone who's looked into it knows. I'm not usually a huge fan of the branded games because I'm like, how much is this really relevant to like the actual board game? But in this case, it did feel pretty Stardew-y. Like the whole friendship thing tied in elements of the likes and dislikes, and it was just really, really, really solid. I very much enjoyed it.
Yeah. I think Chad will enjoy it. He's not interested in the video game in it of itself, which is kind of disappointing because I'd love a multiplayer with him. But I know both he and I enjoy the cooperative board games. Yeah. So I think he's really going to like this one when we sit down to play it.
Yeah, I would not expect too many people to really dislike the board game. I mean, the length, maybe. Like, there are people that just don't like long games. And this, you could definitely play it faster than we did, but, like, it's going to be a long game. Yeah. there's nothing you can do to change that.
That's when you said something, I'm like, on our next board game day.
Right, yeah. Next time we get together specifically to play. Because it was 4 hours, and there was setup and there was some learning, but like it's probably still a 3-hour game. Yeah. Like it is a long game. Yeah. I love long games, but some people don't. And that would be a reason not to like it. But other than that, it had kind of everything. It was great. So yeah, that's my review of a game that's been out for a long time, but I only just played. Yeah. I don't know. Can you actually buy it, or is it? I don't know if they did a printing past the Kickstarter.
I'm pretty sure they did. They had to do, so I think after Kickstarter from their extra ones, they sold out pretty quickly. And then there was a long wait for the second printing. And then I think there was a third printing too. Like it was, I think you can get it on Amazon at this point. Yeah, it's when available. I got mine, you couldn't get it on Amazon. Right. So I got mine at Origins. Yeah. These days, it's like Prime shipping on Amazon, so it's definitely available now. $89, which isn't too bad. No, it's not bad at all.
No, it's a chunky game, so like that's perfectly reasonable.
Box is heavier than it looks too.
It's got a lot of shit in it.
Oh,
yeah. But yeah. So loved the hell out of that. I'm looking forward to playing it again. And someday I'm going to find some people to play in-person trains with me because we've been playing a lot of that online, and that game has its issues too, but I love it. It's fun. So, other than that, I've been playing Backpack Hero a little bit. Oh, actually, you know what? There is a game that,
are you playing the demo of that, or
no? I bought
it's actually not. Is it out? I got the demo of that one too, and that's a surprisingly really fun game.
It's interesting. I like it.
Yeah.
So if you don't know anything about Backpack Hero, it's you play as a mouse. Your initial character is a mouse. You can unlock additional ones, but you find a bag of holding, kind of, and you delve repeatedly in a dungeon doing like different quests. But the quests are all things like start with these items, and you can only, like, it limits you in certain ways, and it's basically an inventory management game where if you have a sword, it'll like buff adjacent items, or if you have a certain armor, it will buff adjacent weapons or whatever. And so you're just trying to like organize your inventory to maximize each weapon or shield, and it's every run is different. It's like I guess it's a roguelite realistically, although it doesn't feel like one. It feels like just a repetitive dungeon diver.
I was actually thinking of a different game.
Oh, which game?
I was thinking of Backpack Battles.
Oh, okay.
So that's why I asked about the demo.
Well, now I have to check that out.
Yeah.
It's not out yet, though?
Oh, no, it is out. It's $16.99. But I've just gotten the demo because I wanted to see what it was. So
okay, it looks similar except PvP.
Yeah, it's you get a backpack and you can get backpack upgrades, and you're strategically placing items, so it will give boosts to other items and stuff, and you're just fighting against other people. It's fun too.
Yeah, it looks good. I may check it out as well. But like the base game loop looks very, very similar.
Because
at least at a high level.
Yep.
So I've been playing that and it's fun. I mean, it definitely gets repetitive, obviously, because it is. But solid game. The other one actually that I picked up, which is like brand new, I picked it up the day that it came out, I guess, is Necrosmith 2.
It sounds familiar.
I saw a random post about it on X and decided to grab it. It's obviously a sequel to Necrosmith, I guess. It's a tower defense where you play a necromancer who is reincarnating like different, like you start by reincarnating like skeletons, but then as you go, you pick up like orc skeletons and like zombies, and like you just like gradually get better pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And you give basic AI instructions to your guys, like defend the tower, go and seek enemy camps, whatever. The first time I played through it, like the tutorial, I got fucking destroyed. So I was kind of instantly hooked because I'm like, oh, a game that like is
actually
potentially
challenging.
difficult.
Yes.
Basically, you really have to be somewhat careful about managing what you're doing. Like you have to go on offense and you have to collect and you have to do some defense. So it's just sort of managing your different little like zombie / whatever. And there's a limit to how many you can have. So sometimes you have to like cycle out old ones and replace them with new ones. It's super good. I mean, I've only played a little bit of it, but I'm fucking loving it.
Nice.
It gets like an A++ from me. And I think it was like cheap.
Yeah, it was like just under $9 right now because it's on discount right now, being just released.
It is on new release discount, but right now it's $9. Yeah, $8.91.
It's actually bundled with a game I have on my wish list right now called Maniac, and it makes me think. We were recently talking about Saints Row over dinner. I think it was last week, and I was telling Danielle, like,
I've got it.
Oh wait, maybe it was from you that I first heard about this. Yeah, because it's bundled with it. Yeah,
it's like a GTA weirdness.
Yeah, like just kill everything.
Yeah. Oh it's super fun. Yeah, Maniac also. Yeah, you can play it from my library probably if you want. Maniac's super fun too. It's like a super cartoony, not serious GTA sort of thing, and it's fun. But yeah, no, I bought a bunch of new games because what happened was I had did I talk about South Park? Yeah, I talked about South Park last week. So when I refunded it, because I was like, oh well, if I can't play multiplayer from the Steam game, I'll refund that. And then when I got the refund, I was like, well, I'll buy a bunch of cheaper games and check them all out. And every one of them is a fucking banger. I'm loving them all. I got Backpack Hero, Necrosmith 2, Peglin, which is fun. It's like a Plinko game, basically.
Kind of like Peggle, it sounds like almost.
Yeah, it's Peggle, but like it's like a roguelike where by hitting different things in the Peggle sort of board, you do damage to the enemies. And so it's kind of the inventory management too. Like it's a little of everything. It's fun. And then I picked up Loop Hero, which I have not tried yet, but looks good. And Maniac was the other one. So yeah, I got a whole bunch of games to try, only a couple of which are new. So
I love small games.
They're the best.
They really are.
I am honestly so almost completely over AAAs.
Yeah.
There is not a AAA that's coming out in the near future that I'm interested in.
Yeah, I can't think of any of them.
GTA is the only one that like when it comes out, and honestly I'm not even that interested in it. Like I'm just kind of like, well, obviously have to buy it. Like everyone has to buy GTA.
Or they will at some point.
It's sort of like you play games, you kind of almost have to get GTA at some point. yeah, I don't think there's any other AAAs that I'm.
No, because even like larger announced games at like the Game Awards stuff that like I think are out now. I can't remember what the one is called, but it has to do with like seeing spirits and ghosts, and it's like Norse and
Oh
you know which one
yeah,
I'm
I think
talking
I
about. But
do. Let
like
me see if I can find
that
it.
one is out now, and I think it's like in terms of reviews. And I know Chad and I were both interested in it, but like we're not going to buy it because we just know that's going to be one of those PS Plus games that comes out in 6 months, and we'll be like, why did we buy this?
Right. Yeah. That's part of it. Definitely for me is like things are coming out on Game Pass and everything else. And also, Sony came out and said, "Hey, we aren't necessarily totally sold on exclusive either," which is interesting because interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe exclusives won't be so much of a thing, and maybe we'll get away from some of the AAA lock-in stuff. But I've been pretty disappointed with a lot of the AAAs, and I haven't found. I know people who are like, "Oh, this was great" and everything else, but usually when I try a new AAAs, I'm like, "Cool, I wish I had waited for 6 months."
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it comes back to that conversation that we've had, I think, more than once about the expense of buying a AAA game.
Yeah.
Your expectations are just that much higher.
Yeah.
And so if it is a shitty game, then it's like it takes a lot less to be a shitty game.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. Like any hiccups and you're kind of like, oh, fuck, what was I thinking? And live service, I'm kind of in the same boat. I mean, I know you and I are pretty much on the same page here where I don't know, just one more thing that can go wrong with my fucking game. I don't need it.
Yeah.
I know I'm in the minority on that currently, although I think as more games become needlessly live service, I think more people will start to realize that not every fucking thing needs to be.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see how things go. Right now, I think a lot of studios are going to be having trouble this year. I think a lot of studios would do themselves a great service by building something a little smaller, a little more focused, just making something fun, cheap and cheerful.
Yep.
Yeah, it's harder to go wrong with that.
Exactly.
But, yeah. We still got a little bit to go. Did you have anything that you wanted to talk about that's coming up or anything?
I mean, there's a game that was announced on Steam like just recently. It's like in the cozy games category, and it looks like fun. The release date isn't announced, but it's called Tiny Tires.
Okay.
It very much makes me think of the Hot Wheels games. Only the cars are even smaller. They're like micro machine cars, and you're like on top of tables. And I look forward to this coming out because it looks very, very cute too.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So there is one other thing that I can talk briefly about, which is the story that I was originally going to talk about today. It's pretty short, but are you familiar with Star Fox, the game? Yeah.
Yep.
So, and some people may already know where I'm going with this. And this is interesting when you consider it in light of Nintendo sticking with like game cartridges for so long. The Star Fox game was made possible because they actually added another chip that did some of the processing, did a bunch of the 3D processing in the game cartridge.
So what did it come out on then?
So it was SNES. Oh, the original Star Fox was SNES. It's actually it's on the little guy that I've got, which is somewhere around here. So the game cartridge had a chip called I have it here, the Super FX chip. And so it did a lot of the floating point arithmetic around the 3D effects in Star Fox. And that's what made it possible to play that game, which was head and shoulders above anything else on the SNES in terms of like processing. And so literally they were able to include an extra processing chip in the game cartridge that effectively acts as an expansion to your game console, but just for the one game, which I think is super cool.
That's cool. I didn't know that because anytime I hear of Star Fox, I think it's always the the N64 version of it, I think.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was like a 3D style one for the SNES.
Yeah, I mean, it was not 3D in the same level of a 64, but it was 3D
at that time. Yeah.
And yeah, that was because the actual, at least a chunk of the processing was actually happening on the cartridge, not even on the SNES, which is just so freaking cool. And honestly, something that was kind of lost. There are other stories, and I should have them close to hand because I've forgotten a couple of them since I was looking through this stuff and reading about this. But there's a couple of examples back in the day where they did that. Small or large. I mean, Game Genie, for instance, had weird extra bits that allowed it to work and everything. Yeah. And you kind of lose all that when you move to CDs and DVDs and Blu-rays and stuff, which, you know, it's a sacrifice we were all willing to make. Yeah. But it's super cool that, yeah, you could take this game. And I think Star Fox was expensive when it came out as a result of that. But you could just be like, you know what? We need some extra power. Let's just whack another chip in the game and rock on.
It's like the in-between, the innovation that's in between the next step. And yeah, that kind of gets lost in between.
Yeah. So anyways, that's super fun. I always love little like hacks like that. Yeah. I did some looking around the Game Genie stuff and the Lego battles that happened there. I may talk more about that sometime down the line because there are some interesting.
Yeah, I'd be interested in that personally.
Some interesting bits, but I want to get a better idea of exactly how the technology worked. I know roughly, but it's interesting how that stuff all worked, and yeah. But we'll probably wrap it up there. We're going to go and check out a live stream for one of the creators that we follow, Y-Files. You should check out Y-Files if you don't already. They'll appreciate the massive boost from our channel.
Yes.
And we will catch you all next week when chat should be back.
Yep. Bye.
See ya.